And a very good morning to you. Welcome along. What an amazing weekend of sport we have coming your way. We're going to speak with Alan Quinlan in the studio to preview the Six Nations. Mike Carlson's going to join us on Skype. I think he may already be in Minneapolis for the Super Bowl. No, you're shaking your head. He's gone to Minneapolis very soon. Maybe today?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning he's gone to Minneapolis. And as well, loads of football to look back on. The most important thing happening in world sport, though, is the Keith Andrews football show, which is happening a little bit later on today, which means that we've got him in studio this morning to help us preview it. How are you?
I'm good, Jay. How are you? So you're not
Good.
normally used to see me in this early, are you?
No, I was like, there was knocking on the door, and I kind of ran past, opened the door, and I was like, oh, how are you?
Jay.
I'm sorry to ignore you.
That's
but
all right.
I was like,
It's just gratefully open the door. It's hard to get into this place at times.
It is, yeah. It's like Fort Knox. We should talk briefly about what you're going to talk about on the show today, and before we do, we should talk about last night, because Spurs killed Man United last night. Like, it was a 2-0 that was comprehensive. As comprehensive a 2-0 as you're ever going to see.
Very comfortable, and there was, especially after the performance against Newport in the FA Cup today, it's the usual. Ask the questions. You know, where are they? A pivotal time of the season in terms of, you know, these couple of weeks. Juventus on the horizon in the Champions League. It's very easy. How many times have we seen it? Liverpool being a prime example. Your season just tends to dip off, but cruise control, absolute cruise control. One team had lots of energy. One team lacked it. Pogba for me is still an issue. Said it time and time again in terms of his defensive responsibilities. He just doesn't get it. And Matic was in there trying to deal with Eriksen and Son and Ali, and it's just, it was a tough watch for a Man United fan.
Matic was actually pretty good. The bits that, so I saw a good bit of the first half, and it definitely looked like he was like this one man.
You can only do so much, can't you?
Also, it looked like he was kind of protecting the centre backs as well. There's just that sense when Phil Jones is there that some bad stuff might happen here, and lo and behold it did. I mean, I don't want to sound wise after the event of the own goal, but there were other bits where it was just like, that's not really good control. You look like you're going to pass it to one of their players at any time. For a team that's just invested so much money in Alexis Sanchez, who's this missing piece, it turns out he wasn't the missing piece.
No, well, you need to get your foundations in place. And to be fair, in the main, Man United have been fairly solid, haven't they? But like Pogba is a massive problem, because Sanchez has come in now and he's going to play one of those three positions behind Lukaku. And if he plays as a 10, where he played the second half when he swapped over with Lingard, Pogba then plays alongside Matic, and he just hasn't got any defensive nous, which I've said this before, really surprised me considering the education he's had in football with Juventus and the type of players that he's played over there with. And at this stage of his career, he should know when to sit in and help his midfield partner. But yeah, it was calamitous defending, and obviously the start of the game was a disaster. Like, that's basic kind of deal with your first ball, get ready.
And again, Phil
Gunners
Jones.
And disaster.
If he's not mastered it by now, is there a potential for Pogba to master that role and the defensive capability? Because I don't think Manchester United are going to play him in the role where Pogba needs to be. If it's not like they've signed Sanchez now, so you've got to start Sanchez, you've got to start a centre forward, and you've got to start somebody on the right of the centre forward. That means Pogba is going to be susceptible to counter-attacks. He's going to be susceptible to being in the wrong position, because he's not going to be one of the three furthest forward players.
Right, I don't know where you play him, because you know you'd have a Matic and you might have two in front of that with a licence to go. But now, with the attacking players that he has to play a 4-2-3-1.
Exactly.
So he needs to learn the role. He needs to have more discipline, and he needs to realise it's not about Paul Pogba, it's about Manchester United. Because in the final third, Alexis Sanchez, Rashford, Lukaku, they are better in the final third. He is better in that middle third when there's grass in front of them to cover the ground. But then when his team's under pressure and when they're playing at Wembley against the Spurs side that are on fire, respect the opposition. He reminded me last night of an Arsenal midfielder, and you won't be glad to hear that, but it was just so ill-disciplined and not interested about off the ball and his awareness what was around him, which really surprised me, because he is a very talented player, but he should have more now, certainly at this stage of his career.
One of the things that I've been looking forward to most over the last, well, basically since Christmas, has been Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho on the same touchline. But if Chelsea keep screwing up the way they did last night, Chelsea are going to sack Conte before we get the chance for them to play each other. It's later this month.
Abramovich wants it as well. He won't sack him before that. He'll let him play United and then sack him after the fight.
I don't know what's going on. Well, we do know what's going on there. It's the same old, isn't it? There's a bit of a power struggle, and he can't get his players in that he wants. It's the model, so it's what he signed up for. But he will feel that he's maybe got in the door, won the championship last year, gives him a little bit more kind of power to do. Look,
Pay attention to the history there. Just,
exactly. Yeah.
Just look what's always happened. You don't get to do this.
It's not a happy camp, and it hasn't been for a number of weeks now.
No, and he was bad-mouthing the one signing they did make in the transfer window. There's a good chance he just gets fired after that performance last night, though, right?
Yeah, there's every chance.
Beaten 3-0 at home by Bournemouth.
Every chance with the history that club has, and Carlo Ancelotti's out of work. In you go, end of the season, readdress it in the summer.
Yeah.
It could easily happen, and no one would be surprised if it
Yeah.
went up on the yellow ticket, would they really?
No. I'd be very disappointed if we don't get to see him against Mourinho. Like, I'm definitely looking forward to this more than I've looked forward to anything in a long time in football. It's like, wow.
It'll be lively, won't it?
Yeah.
Very,
so what have you got coming up on the show today?
Kevin Kilban's got the golden ticket this week. Owen's in the hat next week, ain't you, Paul?
Am I?
Yeah, he's in the hat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just got promoted.
Yeah, we were going to talk all last night. Seamus Coleman obviously coming back, playing his 90 minutes, all the midweek action. We got stuck into Man United, Chelsea obviously, and we've also done a pre-record last night with Daryl Murphy, which was a good interview. Daryl obviously retired in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you guys giving him advice now about how to enjoy life? He's got a couple of years left, really.
Yeah, it's a sensible decision. He's just one of those cluster of players where he's the first, and I think there'll be more retirees, whether it be John O'Shea, Glenn Whelan, John Walters. There'll probably be a few more, but he's certainly the first. And yeah, he's still playing well at club level at the moment. He
probably had another couple of seasons that he could have played international football, like as an option, but you just get to a point in your career where maybe you just need, if he'd played 20 years as a professional and gone over as a kid and stayed there and been in the Premier League for ages, maybe he could have afforded to play out the string as an international sub, but I guess he's got to continue earning a living while he can.
Yeah, and he mentioned as well when we interviewed him that he would come back after the away trips, being away for 10 days with Ireland, and because at club levels, more so now at Forest where he is, he's the main striker.
Yeah.
At Newcastle he was kind of
third or fourth.
Yeah, so he could come back. Rafa Benitez would maybe put him on for 20 minutes and that would probably suit him at the age he was. But now he's a pivotal player for Nottingham Forest. He's coming back tough 10 days away, a lot of travel involved, and he's expected to play, and he even mentioned that he felt like he wasn't quite right.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, so look, I'm sure it was a big decision for him.
All right, Keith, good stuff.
Thank you.
More from Keith a little bit later on. The Keith Andrews show is coming at you live from 12:30 with Keith and Kev, and as we said, Daryl Murphy chatting about his retirement from international football. Here is Kev last night on Off the Ball talking to Stuart Robson about Arsenal signing Aubameyang.
How does Arsene Wenger fit Aubameyang and Lacazette in the same side?
He won't. Lacazette is a lone striker. Whenever I've seen him play for Lyon, whenever he's played for Arsenal, he's never played up front with anybody else. Sanchez and Ozil playing behind him, or have played him behind him. And Aubameyang at Dortmund is an out-and-out striker. He's the number 9, and other players play short of him. Mkhitaryan being one of them in his time at Borussia Dortmund, and Kagawa and players like that, and Marco Reus. So I can't see Lacazette and Aubameyang playing in the same team, and that's why in the summer when they were talking about the two players, I always thought that Aubameyang was a far better player than Lacazette.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing then. You've got an upgrade on Lacazette, so
yeah,
Aubameyang could be a sensation, right? But you've nothing else really. So reports are coming through that Ozil has agreed in principle a new 300 grand a week
He's
contract.
pretty much said it himself. That, like, he posted on Twitter yesterday saying just signing autographs and or something like that. So this is going to happen.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know. Maybe you would have preferred that they'd spent that money on Sanchez and let Ozil go.
But like, screw money. Like, I mean, who cares about it anymore? Arsenal have clearly signed up to this policy as well that money just does not matter.
Yeah.
Just like Liverpool have, just like the two Manchester clubs have. Spurs will eventually get there. Chelsea have clearly. Well, Chelsea are a little bit more frugal, aren't they?
Chelsea totally have a business model where they hire all the good young talent in Europe and then try and make cash off it. Sometimes, though, you would expect it maybe keeping that talent in the style of Lukaku and De Bruyne and a few others that they've let go in recent seasons.
Yeah, but I think
they just need to get a bit better at it.
Yeah, I think Arsenal have just signed up to the thing that money doesn't matter. It's literally assets is all that matters now. And Ozil is a good one to have. I think the Ozil contract is a good idea.
Jarlath Regan says in the Spurs Man United game, it was a fun watch for a Liverpool fan. A big game for Liverpool coming up this weekend though, Jarlath. So let's wait and see just how that one works out for all the Liverpool fans. Fellaini man of the match, says Rory Donoghue. Sunair Salim says Sanchez is a flop. I think we can all agree at this point that it's confirmed he's nailed on 100%
disastrous
flop.
signing.
I don't get why Mourinho plays Pogba as a holding player, only himself to blame. Pogba doesn't seem like the brightest footballer, let him roam free. I'd say Pogba is pretty smart, but he's just been played in the wrong position.
We'll have a look at some of the back pages this morning. We'll start with the Irish Times, and it is this team, once again, that we saw in the Indo yesterday. Jerry Thornley has it this morning, and he concurs with Rory O'Connor's team yesterday. Ryan and Van der Fleer set to start in Paris. That is, of course, James Ryan coming in the second row, Josh Van der Fleer in the back row. Other than that, Cian Healy starting instead of Jack McGrath maybe is the only other point of note from that team. But the team's yet to be announced, of course, officially. But it seems now that we've got two of the top rugby journalists in the country, and Murray Kinsella in the 42 as well. The three of the top rugby journalists in the country talking about it. So this looks like a pretty solid information at this stage. On the Irish Independent, then it's a little bit of a change of tack. GAA earn 180 grand per day. Bonanza year for Croke Park as crowds and income increase. That's Martin Brehony's story. But the follow-up inside is our tab of the morning to you this morning, because it's a fantastic headline and why everybody should still be hiring sub-editors. Grassy Knoll to serve Croke Park a new pitch farming business. For anybody who's like, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, basically the GAA have purchased a 50-acre farm in Knoll, County Dublin, where they're going to take the grass and put it in Croke Park and potentially even export this grass as this own little, I suppose, entrepreneurship business or something that the GAA have set up, that grass is what they're going to sell. Yeah,
well, so they were making the point that it's about 100 grand to replace Croke Park. Whenever there's a concert, they put a bed down on the pitch. They've got to replace that pitch, and this is an extra cost for getting concerts over, and they're also going to be able to do it in Cork as well, so, and potentially in England as well. They'll be able to send it over there. Cash bang walloped. Also pretty good stuff here from the Sun subheads this morning. Arsene Wenger, because he spent money, in record spree. Bang! Mahrez hits out as Fox's snub Pep bid. He's not happy. Obviously he's not happy. That was like, woohoo! I'm going to get millions and millions and millions into my bank account this weekend in the signing on fee, and now it's not happening. And walloped. Ericsson stuns United after 11 seconds. Conte rocked by horror show. We haven't really made enough of a big deal about the fact that it was Chelsea 0, Bournemouth 3. Bournemouth went to London and scored 3 goals against Chelsea and absolutely annihilated them. Antonio Conte looked pretty pissed off on the sideline. Yeah, they're up to 38 points now, 8 points clear at the bottom. I will never play for you again. Oh, it's me, sorry. I will never play for you again. It's Riyad Mahrez's threat after Leicester blocked dream move to City. I mean, Claude Puel has already given the press conference where he's like, I hope he comes back and he's happy and he's smiley, and I'm not really sure that's going to happen. Leicester beaten 2-1 last night by Everton. On the front page of the Irish Examiner sports section, it says, quick and easy, Christian Eriksen there, striking in 11 seconds as Spurs sink sorry United. On the back of the Herald, Spurs burn Devils, reads the headline. Again, Jose lamenting ridiculous Eriksen goal 10 seconds in. While on the Irish Daily Star, it says, sub-story, United behind after 11 seconds, Fellaini lasts just 7 minutes, and Jose blasts ridiculous goals. Right, this is the headline on the back of the Irish Daily Mail this morning. It says, no Africans, West Ham's transfer chief in race slur. So a senior West Ham official, Tony Henry, the director of player recruitment, has been accused of telling agents that they don't want to sign any more players from the African continent, and then he goes on to stereotype players from that continent. According to the accusation that's been made, that West Ham say they're now investigating 3 Six Nations debutants for Paris opener. So this is Joe Schmidt. Obviously, Bundy Aki is the third Six Nations debutant to go with James Ryan and Jacob Stockdale. There you go. And Coleman back in the groove. Seamus Coleman, 93rd minute, 80-yard lung-busting run to make an interception and given man of the match, which is pretty good because Theo Walcott scored twice. And whoever the sentimental geezer making the decision was like, nah, I like your 2 goals, Theo. Fair play to you. Maybe you're finally becoming a footballer worthy of the title footballer. But Seamus Coleman, we love him. Everybody loves Seamus Coleman, but Sam Allardyce loves Seamus Coleman more than everybody else loves Seamus Coleman. He is such a Sam Allardyce player. As you mentioned, that lung-busting run in the 90th minute. A little partnership with a silky right winger as well. There's good things going to happen on that right wing at Everton, but I'm not just sure if Sam Allardyce is going to be the man to see it out when next season gets underway. What's on the back of the Racing Post there, Ger? It's what's starting tonight? Oh, what Premier League elite competition? It's a Brexit porn. It's in a league of their own. It's all kicking off this evening. Betfred Super League, which is Rugby League, and Premier League darts. Yeah, Michael Van Gerwen versus Rob Cross. I almost forgot his name, the world champion at the PDC World Darts Championship. How dare I forget? The Racing Post actually is of interest today for Irish racing fans in particular. There's double-page spread with Michael O'Leary. The Jigginstown Supremo shoots straight from the lip. He's slagging off Willie Mullen's brother at one point for trying to limit the amount of entries that a specific owner might be able to have in the handicaps in Ireland. It's good stuff. It's fairly typical fare from Michael O'Leary at this point.
Let's have a look at the front page of the Irish News Sports section. I think they're going with the Super 8s this morning. They're saying it's no cash bonanza. That's a story there saying, well, that's from the GAA's angle anyway, that this isn't any kind of cash-driven exercise bringing in the Super 8s. And of course, the other story there, which is a big story in Ulster today, of course, is that Kiss is parting company with Ulster. We'll get into that with Alan Quinlan in a few moments. Just to round up the sports pages in the UK, the Daily Telegraph is going with gone in 10.5 seconds. Ericsson scores third fastest goal in Premier League history, while Fellaini is subbed off 8 minutes after coming on. And on the back of The Guardian this morning, it's also Christian Eriksen. Fast show. United floored by Eriksen's goal after 11 seconds. They also mention the humbling that Chelsea received at home against Bournemouth last night.
All right, so that's the back pages. We'll run you through some of the other big stories in the newspapers a little bit later on. Mike Carlson's going to join us to talk about the NFL in about half an hour's time. Obviously, Super Bowl this weekend. Really good piece by Dave Hannigan actually talking about the Philadelphia Eagles fans and just how scummy they are.
What is with the dog masks? Does he explain that in this article?
He doesn't.
Right, okay. I need to find this out because
don't know.
I don't think anybody is quite sure. I saw the players do it and I'm like, that's funny. Wait a minute, why am I laughing at a joke that I'm not in on?
Everybody, so the dog pound is supposed to be in Cleveland, right? I don't know what the... I'm sure some of our Eagles fans out there might be able to tell us.
Yeah. I heard that they were warning the Vikings fans before they went to Philly about all this, that they were like, watch out for these devilish fans when you go to Philadelphia.
Well, they were battering people, and they've got a long track record from booing Santa at the halftime when he was singing Christmas songs like 20 years ago to throwing batteries at somebody at one point. You know, throwing snowballs, okay, I mean, they're probably icy and terrible, but throwing batteries, that'll kill you. So, anyway, more about that a little bit later on, the actual match itself with Mike Carlson. Alan Quinlan's going to join us in just a second. First, though, here's Keith Wood talking about the number 10 position for Ireland and how we really need to protect Johnny Sexton, particularly in the early exchanges.
We'll have a lot of Johnny Sexton's play that he does so well, those loops that he does, that he sets people up. He'll bide his time to do it, because I don't know that they'll need to do it all the time, but they'll spread it wide enough to try and fracture up a new French team, whether they're going to be defensively sound. Look for the gap and make certain that gap is exploited. And I still think we'll kick our points, and I think we'll kick into the corner when our confidence is up and whether it's the right time of the game to do so. I don't worry about the Irish team as much anymore. I just think that Sexton at 10 is marshalling it incredibly well. I hope not all the game goes through him. And I'd like to see other people step into 10 at times, because I think Ireland are a better team when that happens, when we're not just solely hinged around Sexton. And I actually think Sexton doesn't get targeted as much when we bring other players into 10.
Who is that player that steps into play that first receiver role?
Yeah, it can be any of them. It could be Robbie Henshaw coming in. Rob Kearney doesn't do it that often. It's one of the reasons I like Carberry when he comes in at 15, because he's automatically running to go into that position. It's a more natural step up for him. I would like to see our wingers get involved a little bit more in the midst of play rather than staying out in the wing. And again, if that happens, I think it takes some of the constant scrutiny off Sexton.
All right, that's Keith Wood speaking last night on Wednesday Night Rugby with Dave McIntyre, who is actually going to be in the commentary position for TV3 this weekend alongside Alan Quinlan.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Six Nations debut, big day. Big day,
yeah, big audience. It's going to be nervous, but I'm excited by it. Six Nations always gets me excited when I played there as a player. I grew up as a kid watching it, so it's a big start for Ireland. Our record in Paris is not good.
No.
I think we'll have all this optimism going there this weekend, and the naysayers probably saying, oh, we've the green goggles on, thinking that we're going there with a lot of confidence and self-belief, but we have that confidence and self-belief, and on paper I think we're a better side, more organised side, more structure, but then when you look at the results, Ger...
Yeah, so how often were you on those squads that went over? It was like, we're really good, and then something happens?
Probably in my time it wasn't. Dricko's, the team in 2000 when Dricko got the 3 tries, that was probably a big turning point for confidence, self-belief. The provinces winning in France, We won there for the first time at Munster in '98.
Yeah.
Then Leinster started winning, different teams, Ulster getting results there. So it became kind of a monkey off the back, if you like, and that kind of translated into the national side.
There were still games like...
there was a ton of optimism going there several times, and we came away short.
The year that... one of the years that we should have won the Grand Slam under Eddie, where I think it ends with the Shane Horgan try in the corner against England, but that year against France they were like 40-0 up at half time, and we get it back to 40-33 in the second half. Did you play in that game?
No, I didn't. No, unfortunately I was only watching from the stands. Yeah, there was a few performances there. I remember in '98 I was on the A team and we played in Brittany on Friday night. Then we went on Saturday to the Stade de France. It was probably relatively new at that stage, and the expectation even then in a lot of our minds, and probably the team that went out to play that day, was, look, keep the score down, because there was so many hidings there. The team lost 18-16 that day. Should have won the game.
There's a missed kick by Humphreys.
Yeah, and then in 2000, as I say, when the team beat France there, when you kind of have that muscle memory to go back to, and you get that monkey off your back, it changes. So the mentality changed, but the team still went there a lot and lost. Even in 2007 at the World Cup, we'd struggled against Namibia and Georgia, and then went to Paris thinking, if we get it right, we'll be close enough. I think we lost 25-3.
Yeah.
They just have this,
like that.
No, they just have this ability to, even against the odds, so that makes me nervous about Saturday. So 2 years ago, we beaten 10-9, went there with a team again. France were in a bit of disarray, shambles, no consistency in selection. I think it was Novez's first game, and you think, we're going to win this game, we lose 10-9, and it was a frustrating game. You look at the game afterwards, the opportunities, the mistakes. That's the only way France can win on Saturday, I think, by frustrating Ireland, stopping them playing. So for me, it's Ireland's to lose. But like I said, 1948, 1952, 1972, 2000 and 2014 are
not a great record.
Are the 5 times in 70 years.
Yeah.
But I think in saying that, Ger, the ones probably before 2000, we didn't really expect to win.
Yeah.
Even though there's some great Irish sides went there, but there was some Irish sides went there and got walloped as well. So that makes me nervous.
Is this the worst you've ever seen a coaching ticket for France?
It's a shambles. I think, I was reading Frano's piece in the Indo this morning. I didn't know this. I think they've had 103 different combinations in a 10-year period at 9 and 10, which is amazing. And that's what it tells you. So even trying to select the French side, you just think, where's the consistency in selection? Most of their team are pretty inexperienced and young. They've some very good players now, but the problem is consistency in selection, and then it goes down to coaching. So Laporte never liked Novez. They always had a bit of rivalry. Since Laporte took over as president, the rumours and the talk were that there was more pressure going to come on Novez, and they only won 3 games in 2017 out of 11. So the return is bad. If they keep chopping and changing, it's not going to get any better for them on their day. But I think on their day is kind of gone, because we relate France to big wins against the All Blacks in World Cups and a team that can play outstanding at home if they get it right. But it's too often now that it's if they get it right. And the results in the championship have proved that.
Yeah.
They're 9th in the world. I grew up thinking France were incredible. Next to the All Blacks, you just probably loved watching the French team. Sella, Saint-André, Blanco, these guys, just incredible players. The way they played, and big bruising forwards that intimidated you. Now, and I think the problem is, and we all know this, is the disconnect between club versus country, and the amount of overseas players in France.
Yeah.
It's just...
Well, let's stick the team up, the French team. This was L'Equipe's probable team from during the week. You might, obviously there's a couple of paragraphs in French there. I'm not going to ask you to translate those. Tell us a little bit about some of the names.
Well, Palais said the full-back. I actually, he plays with Cass. He looked really good in Thomond Park. There was just something about him. You see a player and you say, he looks good.
Yeah.
He looks controlled, measured. Vakatawa has that X factor. He can be outstanding with Racing. Chavancy, Lameret, you know, two solid players. Lameret plays really well. He was with Cass before. He's with Clermont now, very powerful in the centre. Teddy Thomas on the wing, again, has that bit of X factor. But you want the one that's probably everybody's going to be talking about is Jalabert. He
19-year-old at half.
For France last year. He was on the under-20 team. He's only played a handful of games for Bordeaux. But Brunel was the one who played him in his first top 14 start on November the 4th. So the November internationals are gone on, and the week before he starts at 10. Now, he played at full-back a few times before that. So he obviously sees him as an unbelievable talent. And maybe he's investing. Maybe he's trying to say, right, I want to get a young guy in here, stick him in and keep him there. But very, very inexperienced.
He's got a step off both feet. He's got a big boot. He's got a really good goal kicking. It's the type of thing that, like,
run. He seems to have the full package. Like, he's a brilliant modern day footballer.
Yeah.
International rugby pressure. He could be outstanding if he gets on the front foot and France, the crowd get going. You know, he could do something special. So I think Joe Schmidt and Andy Farrell will be very aware to try and put pressure on him.
Do you do that? Do you put that pressure on him by keeping the game really tight and very ultra structured early on, so that there's no opportunity for him just to pick a ball up and go on a run? Or do you do it by physically imposing yourself and go, right, kill him in the first 10 minutes, lads. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
whatever you do,
like, you know, if I'm in the dressing room and thinking we've got to get at him, we've got to put him under pressure. But if he kind of responds to that, and maybe he is a physical kind of player, he likes to bit of contact, and he's confident. I think the best way to do that is get your scrum and line out right. So if you do that, Jared, then you have Aki running in that 10 channel, you have Henshaw coming in that 10 channel, maybe Stander getting a few runs at him.
Yeah.
So you want to try and tie him in more than, you know, physically.
So you don't go out of your way to do it.
Yeah, so, and then get in his face. So Andy Farrell, I think he's done an outstanding job with Ireland. He'll be trying to get the defensive line up really quickly, get in his face, make him kick, and try and hold back two in the backfield, so that when he does kick, that Ireland gather the ball, whether it's Earl, Stockdale, Carney, that access works well in the backfield. But particularly off line out, because I think, and that's the intriguing thing, because our set pieces 2 years ago, particularly the scrum, struggled a lot. So when you look at Slimani, I think on his day he's world class as a tight head. He's very, very powerful.
He's a big guy.
Poira, the Bordeaux loose head as well. Garado, they have a bit of experience and a bit of grunt there.
Yeah, so it's not. It's like we're the assumption so far in the pre-match analysis has been they've sacked their head coach. The figurehead of French rugby has been involved in this massive scandal. It's a shambles. Their teams are kind of completely in Europe made up of foreigners anyway. We should go and blitz them. That's been the analysis.
That's the talk, and it's dangerous.
You go through it player by player, and it's like, well, actually, he plays at a very high level. That guy's really good. There's a second row club partnership, which is, you know, they're going to have familiarity, and they've experience in the right places, and they've got these genius young tyros potentially in the bits where they need to infect some new enthusiasm. Not really the straightforward. Let's go and beat them by 7 points.
It's a known and unknown. What we know is that they are relatively inexperienced and that it's difficult to go to Paris. The unknown is how they're going to play. If they click and gel, I think it just doesn't make... It's not realistic, I don't think, for them to gel well together, because historically in the Six Nations, all teams are a little bit slow out of the blocks because of lack of preparation time and game time. So you just don't know what you're going to get. But on paper, as you say, there's some very good players there. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Wayne Ryan says by text, or on Twitter, sorry, we lost to Scotland last year, first game up, and I remember we were very confident then. I think this is going to be much harder than people are predicting. Great show. Thanks, Wayne.
It's a very good point. Yeah. Because, but I actually think that would be benefit to us.
You'd hope so.
Because you think the team meeting this week will be, let's make sure that we're not still on the bus that was late mentally. We've got to start well. Most of these players, the bus was late.
The Scots.
We were late out of the blocks. The Scotland came out, blitzed us early on, and then the second half we were brilliant. We upped the pace, the intensity, and got ourselves right back in the game. But I think they'll speak about that. So you don't want the French getting any.
No. They definitely. They all this week they promised that it has not come up in conversation once. Marielle.
Well, look, the players themselves will probably drive it as well and say, look, we've got to start well here.
Yeah.
I think we've so many leaders in the group, Ger, that, you know, they'll be experienced enough. They've been in a lot of situations before away in France, playing with Ireland, playing with their provinces, that they know that if they allow this French team settle, get a couple of scores early on, a couple of penalties, if Jalabert gets maybe 2 penalties early on and France are 6-0, he's settled, he's nicely into the game, the crowd are going, oh, hold on a minute here, we've started well. So what you want is, and sometimes it's not necessarily on the scoreboard, it's how Ireland physically kind of get into the game and control it, and their strategy around their exit patterns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you play France, it's physical. So I think, and you know, I played against Brunel's teams a few times at Perpignan. They're going to be physical, they're going to be abrasive, and that's their only chance. They've got to get in their faces.
Is there a general sense of disdain in France around this team? Will the crowd be right behind them from the start, kind of in, like, with their backs to the wall? Does that bring the best out of the French crowd, or is there just kind of a sense of, God, not this crowd again, it's going to take a few years for us to get back to the top table?
There's a sense of frustration. Any ex-players I've spoken to, the opinion this week was they just don't want to talk about this French team. They're frustrated. The crowd are. Now, sometimes there's an unrealistic pressure, and they don't look at the facts and figures. They just want France to win. They're a very proud nation. They're passionate about their rugby. But there's a certain level of unrest there about how you can get rid of a coaching ticket. Even though the results were poor, how are you going to get any consistency if you just keep chopping and changing? It's like in football. Manager's in for a couple of months, he's gone.
It feels like Laporte wants to do this job as well as the other job. It's like, could I just, maybe I'll just get my guy in. Like, they obviously have a good relationship, Laporte and Brunel.
Yeah, that's why he was assistant coach for a number of years under Laporte. So Laporte obviously trusts him, and he wants someone in there that he can trust. But the problem, Jerry, in French rugby is there's interference. So Laporte will be in his ear, pick this fella, pick that fella, if something goes wrong. The Irish coach, Joe Schmidt, any of the Irish coaches have a rugby board and a rugby committee that they report, and they let him know what the plan is and what the structure is, and if there's a bad result, he's probably got to go in there and explain what's going on and stuff like that. But there's be a fair bit of interference now with Laporte, but we'll have to wait and see. I think from an Irish point of view, is it good that we're playing him first, or is it very dangerous? It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Because if you saw France for 2 games and maybe they were struggling, you'd see what way they're playing. You're just expecting the unknown a little bit here. But I think structure and game plan, hopefully, if Ireland can execute that. But I think the mistake that they may make is, I don't think they will make, you've got to go and play there. You can't kind of sit back, and I think they're vulnerable, France. So Ireland, if they start well and keep the pace into the game, and you just look at the players we have, Murray, Sexton, the forward pack.
Yeah.
You know, there's certainly opportunities there.
Like, even in terms of experience, like not having Pickmold involved in that squad, it seems like a blunder, doesn't it? And I know half the squad is under 25, so it seems to be building towards, and we kind of discussed it yesterday, not even towards the next World Cup, but towards the home World Cup.
Yeah, like, you're talking about picking on form, and that's the kind of terminology we hear a lot. Pickmold is a form player. He's a big game player. He gets over the gain line, and you can build kind of strike plays off someone like that. But to be fair, Gordon, Laurie and Kamara's outstanding. He was, I think if you remember that Stade Francais Munster game a couple of years ago, he got a brilliant try. He's a really powerful athlete, but you think someone like Pickmold will give you that direction and give you that power over the gain line. So that's not a form selection, that's a personality selection. But I think Brunel he's kind of got rid of some of Novese's go-to guys. Yeah. Like Fiku is not there either in the centre, which is a little bit surprising. Fofana's injured, which is, he's a superb player. But
yeah, Pastor's obviously banned for being a homophobe. The role of Bonaire and all this, right? So you were saying outside, Bonaire has had no coaching experience, but he is one of these totemic figures in French rugby, kind of like a Paul O'Connell figure in some ways, where he's a pig. When you're playing against him, I can only imagine that. Like, you just know that you're going to come up against him and he's not moving. And if the ball is being spoiled, when the bodies are unpeeled, he's going to be at the bottom of it.
Yeah, Julien Bonaire is someone that I had massive respect for, and I would have called probably short lineouts from Munster. when we played in Europe, and we played Bourgogne a few times. And then he went to Clermont, and we played them a number of times. And I just remember we had a kind of 4 and 5+1 lineouts where I'd be at halfback and I'd step in different places on our short lineouts. And he was the one guy who used really drive me demented because he was so up to date with the lineouts.
Right, so he would know what you were going to do.
Yeah, so he was literally watching me where I would go. So I had to kind of try and go to the next level and say, I've got to second guess him, I've got to confuse him, and I've got to dummy to the front and let Paul call it to the back on Paul, or dummy to the back and call it on Donnacha in the front. And he just was always on my case. And what it told me was that he was just, for a French guys to be that into lineouts and that kind of intelligent around lineout stuff. And then, you know, he called all the lineouts for France and the club teams he played. So it's kind of like Paul O'Connell stepping straight out of, like, he's gone a year and a bit now, Bonaire, a year and a half, 2 years. But like, he hasn't forgot how to run a line-out. So he'll talk to the French players, he'll have that organisation.
With most people, you would say you're not really allowed to do this anymore because the game moves so quickly, there's so much work involved. But when you're in that role and you have that position, you're kind of an auxiliary coach anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And I've said it a few minutes ago, how are you going to get at Jalabert at 10? Line-out, hopefully. But Bonaire will have... Vaha Mahina is the bigger, stronger guy, but Aturia is a very kind of athletic second row who plays with Clermont. He's only one cap, but he'll be putting a bit of... And Kamara is very tall. Gordon, Laurie, they'll be, you know, throwing them up around the back of the line and trying not for Ireland to win ball towards the middle or the tail of the line to get those strike plays going. So I think Bonaire, even though he's very little coaching experience, I think it could be a big bonus for them.
Yeah.
And he'll certainly, the players will know him well.
I think that's the other thing, is like there's a kind of a legendary status benefit. Like,
absolutely,
and,
yeah.
You know, it's not supposed to matter. Like, all sports, good coach, good player, automatic, not real thing. But actually, as part of a coaching ticket, having somebody like that walk in and go, well, this
He's been running the line-out now for probably 15 years as a player, and you know, if you're a line-out caller and a player, you're effectively coaching anyway. You're choosing the line-outs, you're calling where to go, you're telling guys, wake up, be on the ball, you know, similar to
wasn't he the coach of the team who reached the World Cup final in 2011 anyway? Or one of them. Yeah, but but they sacked the coach midway through. Like,
and they got to
you
the
just
World
sit in
Cup
the meetings
final.
there, Mark, and look pretty, and we'll run this team here. That was kind of...
Yeah, so Bonaire is someone that I think will actually be a bonus to them, and even though he has no coaching experience, but...
Does that mean the people in that position are naturally going to become better coaches?
Whoever's calling the line out.
If you have a leadership role on the field, it's kind of natural. It's like an out half, Ronan O'Gara. He's probably running a backline for so long, he's picking the backline moves. If you're one of these dominant leaders in a team, it does give you more of a natural progression where you've got to, it's like you just step outside, but you're still giving the same messages. And you have to have an eye for it. So running a backline or picking backline moves or stuff, you have to have an eye for that stuff. And the line-out is the same. I was obsessed with line-outs. So you think, that doesn't mean I'll be a good coach because it's maybe the messages you got to give. But I think when you just have one specific role, like run the line-out, which Bonaire will probably be doing, Bruno will be doing the scrum, and okay, they might mix and match stuff with the forward pack, but he's been doing that for so long. So I think if you're in that role and you've got a result with teams you've played with, that you've been in, you're obviously giving decent messages, so it's about tailoring them right. And again, it doesn't automatically mean you'll have success. It depends on the personalities you're coming in. How willing are they to listen and learn? So I think that's why you mentioned a combination of a little bit of consistency with the two second rows. They play together, so that will help them a little bit. And Laurie and Gordon have played, you know, they've been involved for the last couple of seasons. Camera, you know, a real X-factor player, someone who can he can run quicker than most backs.
Yeah.
Offloading game as well. So it just depends how he puts all that together, Bonaire.
A couple of quick comments. Kieran O'D says, everyone says it's the worst French ticket and lack of experience, but it's still France. Hope we're not building ourselves up for a fall. We should hammer France using logic and sporting form, but you can never take a team with nothing to lose lightly. The French may step up out of spite. Let's talk about Ireland, because...
That's exactly what we're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. that's the only way that this happens. With Scotland last year, at least Scotland were on a progression, and they were definitely getting better, and they'd been well coached for a couple of years, and you know, it looked like, and their club teams had started to put some level of consistency together, and they had good players who were in form. With this, it's really about, like, it's the new coach, and it's also the potential that they're playing from muscle memory. The Ireland team looks like it's been agreed, certainly by the journalists. They've picked the same team, that everybody seems to have got the same information, that it is going to be the back three of Stockdale, Earls and Kearney, not entirely surprising, and that James Ryan gets the nod in the second row and Cian Healy starts. So about as a predictable an Irish team as you would have expected?
Yeah, obviously James Ryan is someone who impresses Joe Schmidt a lot. Again, relatively inexperienced, 3 caps, first big start in November. He had played in the tour last summer. I remember watching this guy a couple of years ago playing under 20s, and I said, geez, he's got unbelievable energy, and he's abrasive, makes a tackle, bounces back up off his feet, makes another tackle, makes a carry, just full of energy and great enthusiasm, and a good footballer. I was surprised because of Toner's experience and maybe what happened 2 years ago, where it's got quite physical. You remember Maestri hitting Sexton in the back of the head with the elbow, Garrado and Rob Kearney. They were out to kind of ruffle up the Irish feathers a little bit.
They broke Heaslip's back as well with the... Was that game?
That was Pape in Dublin. No, that was maybe a year or so before. But you're going to get that physical reaction from the French. So James Ryan has shown and proven, and he's probably thrown himself about in training, and that's why he's in there. Himself and Henderson, certainly a partnership for the future. They're so young, and so he'll it's a big test for him. It's a big test for him, I think. There's no doubt about it. That's a surprise. Josh van der Fleer is not a surprise for me, mainly, and it probably goes against Levy a little bit, because I think he's an outstanding player as well, but because you go back to Exeter when he comes off the bench in Dublin here, Joe's thinking, I want that after 50 minutes again, whereas I don't know if van der Fleer is the same impact player. Levy brings aggression, power, a real kind of anger as well at times. He's very physical. So I think van der Fleer gives massive. That's not saying that he's not aggressive, van der Fleer, because I think to get the amount of turnovers and the impact tackles he puts in, he's very, very aggressive. But Levy probably brings that impact off the bench. So
Levy's only 23 as well.
Yeah, they're very young, and they're great players to have with someone like Sean O'Brien out. Yeah.
What do you expect from Stockdale in a match like this? Because obviously is he keeping Larmour and Conway out of the team, or is Rob Kearney keeping Larmour and Conway out of the team? Like, does Joe see Larmour at Ireland at this point as a winger, do you think, or do we know?
We don't know yet, really, because there is a bit of safety in net there, and with that experience with Rob Kearney, I think he's played really well this year, and he's delivered before, and Larmour, there's just unbelievable excitement about him. It's very, very quick, so unless your kind of hand is forced, there's a bit of patience there, and there's a little bit of time in this. Stockdale was outstanding. I think it's 4 tests, 4 tries, so that's a good return. It's like a striker in soccer, isn't it?
Yeah. He's got a bit of niggle in him too.
And he's big. He's big. He's powerful and quick. And since November, obviously, Ulster have been up and down a little bit, so it's been tricky for him. But again, he delivered in November, and Joe likes players who deliver for him, which is completely understandable. So I don't think there's any need to propel Larmour in there. Larmour could be involved against Italy. He's been picked, so I think he'll have some involvement. But I think that back three probably understand that they've got to play well. They've got to deliver. They've got to chase everything that's kicked downfield from Conor Murray. They've got to put in their tackles, because you've Conway, Larmour, McFadden playing so well. And breathing down their neck.
I can't shake the feeling that if Joe Schmidt had to pick his team today, gun against his head, for the World Cup, for the Scotland game, he'd be like, this is my back three. He'd be delighted if this was his back three.
Of Kearney, Stockdale and Earls.
In the World Cup.
Yeah.
Everybody fit.
Everybody fit, yeah, of course, because you have unbelievable experience in Carney at full back, and he talks a lot. His positional sense is good. Maybe the one weakness is hitting that line, scoring tries, getting a return. But do you give up some of the other stuff which he's outstanding at?
And I'd say he thinks he's got that now with Stockdale and Earls if they're both fit.
Yeah, he has. And but look, Larmour could get a chance and be outstanding, and he could play against Scotland or Wales as well. So I think it's a good position. The one that sticks out for me is the midfield, where at times we've been a little bit bare in midfield on occasions. If you get an injury or two, go to the World Cup when Luke Fitzgerald has had to be put in there. You're putting wingers into the centre. Tommy Bowe's gone in there a few times. You've a fair bit of depth there now, and you've a fair bit of power in Henshaw and Aki. Chris Farrell as an option to come in, very strong physically. He's played well with Munster, and then Ringrose hopefully will get back at some stage during the Six Nations. So you've 4 top quality guys in the centre as well.
It just strikes me as an unbelievable blend of youth and experience. Just even seeing the likes of Sean Cronin and Fergus McFadden back around the squad with this sort of, I don't know, renaissance in their career. I'm not sure is it fair to say that, because they haven't exactly dipped to the point where this is a huge comeback.
There's nothing better, believe me, than someone who's frustrated, angry, peed off a little bit that they're being written off, because that shows kind of true character. And they're 2 great stories, because you know, and players who've delivered before, to get them back, you know, with an angry kind of reaction and showing their quality, and showing that maybe, look, they've got to change something in training, they've got to get a bit fitter, they've got to, you know, make more sacrifice. The young guns are coming to push them aside, and you love that reaction. And when you have guys then that you can put that experience on the bench, it's brilliant for the team.
One last point I just wanted to talk. Les Kiss gets fired in the middle of a massive news cycle for Ulster Rugby and a massive news cycle for rugby generally in the week of the Six Nations. Not the classiest move, I have to say, I feel, by Ulster Rugby at this point. Like, let them see out the season, come to an arrangement. What difference does it make?
Yeah, it's not a surprise, but I think the timing of it could have been a lot better. The week of the French game, 2 days before you're going to play a test over there, the pressure that's been on him is phenomenal. I'd say he's probably happy in some ways just to get away from it, because it can become very toxic when you're under that sort of pressure. The issue I have with it is John O'Gibbs and Dwayne Peel. You know, they get and this is, like it or not, it's the same. Whereas assistant manager takes over in football teams, there's been very little scrutiny of what they're trying to do, because I think the Ulster forwards this year have been poor on many occasions. Some days they've kind of got it right, and that's given a bit of a hope that it will get better, but they haven't played well, and the 4th year in a row they've missed out in Europe. And I think for a team the size of Ulster and with their ambition, and it goes back to what Shane Logan, their CEO, said in 2010, we want to be the best in the world, best club side in the world.
He really backed that up, didn't he?
Well,
like, come on.
It's not been good. And I think he certainly has to come out and address the Ulster fans, and maybe his position could become untenable, because he's been steering the ship really, and I think they've made one mistake after another, and they just haven't delivered. So I feel for Les, because he's such a decent bloke, but sometimes you can get into that situation where there's a bit of negativity and it just grows, and ultimately the players haven't delivered for him, so they've got to have a look at that as well. But sometimes a different voice can change things, so we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
wish Les obviously the best of luck at any dealings you've ever had with him. He's come across
he's been outstanding, and
a really good person.
Really good fella.
Yeah. All right. Injured Ireland and Leinster star Garry Ringrose sat down with Owen yesterday as he was officially announced as a PwC brand ambassador. Here's how it went.
All right, we are here at the PwC headquarters with their brand new brand ambassador, Garry Ringrose. Garry, congratulations on the new role. Thank you. And I think the question everybody all around the country is simply, how are you? How's the ankle holding up?
Yeah, it's good. It's great, thanks. Obviously, it's never ideal coming back from injury and then picking up another one, but thankfully it's not too bad, and it's an ankle injury that the medical team at Leinster have dealt with before, and the procedure's been done plenty of times before, so it's not a long-term one. So there's another couple of weeks to go, and then hopefully we'll be back fit.
What kind of person are you when you're injured? Are you looking to be involved all the time with Leinster in terms of team meetings and stuff like that?
I think when you're injured, there's an onus to be in meetings anyway, and that would come from the player and the coaches as well. So no one really gets left behind when you're injured. Everyone's still involved. It keeps evolving with the team each week. So yeah, you'd still have some sort of contribution, or certainly pick up learnings from games.
Stuart, Lancaster described you as philosophical with regards to this current injury, and I think that's probably pretty accurate, because when you look at the injury again, at least it wasn't a soft tissue injury. You couldn't have prepared any better to avoid this type of injury. It was a freak accident, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, that's when I was chatting to him, he was asking how I was, and I suppose that was the answer I gave. I didn't really think about it too much, but that thing, it's obviously it's not ideal, but it happens. When it rains, it pours, and coming back from injury, just picked up another one. But as you said, luckily it wasn't worse. Yeah, you mentioned it there yourself, coming back from injury and picking up another one. So how much has this been a psychological battle as much as a physical one? Yeah, it is. It's a challenge, and I wouldn't use the word frustrating to describe it. I mean, you channel your energy into other areas, and the rehab itself. I think I was talking about earlier, pretty lucky to be in a club, say, that has, say, someone like Jamie Heaslip who's in a long-term injury, and seeing his professionalism and the energy and positivity he brings around the club. I mean, it certainly sets the right example, and even like you kind of see everyone goes in and out of injuries. Seeing Sean O'Brien coming back from one as well, and seeing the professionalism and work he puts in, it's I know I consider myself lucky to be around guys like these and can kind of follow their example. And in terms of your own experiences then that might have helped you out here, like your whole career, it hasn't been an easy ascent, so to speak. Like if you look at your time in Blackrock, for example, you know, 4th year, 5th year, and even in 6th year, you had to fight for your place in that team. Of course, you finished sensationally, but there was still that battle all the way up through school. Does that come into your thinking? Does that make you a stronger person mentally? I wouldn't have overthought it, looked too far into it now, or overthought it. But yeah, I think regardless, wherever you go, there's always going to be competition, and the odds might be stacked against you, but yeah, you just gotta, all you can do is keep the head down and keep working hard, and I mean, control the controllables, and anything like selection or injuries, stuff like that is unfortunately out of my control, so there's no point worrying about that kind of, or might try to worry about or channel my energy into just working as hard as I can. I think I heard somebody describe yourself and Robbie Henshaw as almost the elder statesman of this Leinster team at this point, with the new talent that's coming through there. Do you ever get time to reflect on your initial burst into the Leinster team as that period of hype, and how hard it might have been maybe to try and continue your incremental developments while this hype was happening? Yeah, I don't know, I wouldn't really think, it kind of just happened so quickly, and you don't really think too far back in it. It's weird to think it's a third, could be even 4th season with Leinster, and I still have the same sort of energy and enthusiasm as day one. It doesn't really feel like anything's changed, and I think in terms of hype, you don't really pay too much attention to it. I mean, sometimes people don't see rings being run around you in training, and some of the mistakes you make during matches mightn't be as evident. So there's always stuff like that's in the forefront of focus of trying to improve on, and not really worry about anything else outside that. Do you see any comparisons then with your kind of ascent? And I think actually the Jordan Larmour try against Munster, this is a comparison I was hoping to make here. Like, people said that's Jordan Larmour's Garry Ringrose moment. Do you see any parallels like that yourself? I know, I think he's better than I was, and some of the performances he's put in have been phenomenal. And it comes as no surprise that he's included in the Six Nations squad. You know, he's one of the hardest working lads in the squad, and as I was saying earlier, he's one of the last off the training pitch, and I mean, he's a humble guy, down to earth, so he won't get too distracted by anything else other than kind of sticking to his knitting, and what works for him is working as hard as possible, and it's proven in performances. So I think I'd be pretty excited to see if he's involved in some capacity during the Six Nations. Are you of the belief, given your own experiences, that the best method is always just to throw somebody into the deep end? If they're good enough, they're old enough, kind of thing? I don't know. I think it's from playing like even under 20s. It is kind of gradual steps, and he was impressive with under 20s. So it's not. I can't imagine it's too much of a jump that he's been prepared. And I mean, you learn so much in training. Certainly, I found when I for my first season that it's not so much a deep end. You just kind of try to adapt as quick as you can based on your learnings, and learn as much as you can. And I don't know. I think that's probably I think you earn your spot. It's not a matter of kind of thrown into the deep end. If you're good enough, you get picked. And someone like Jordan certainly has proved he's good enough in training, and then he's proven he's good enough out in a Leinster jersey as well.
It seems like an amazing place to be learning your craft at the moment, Leinster, just given the characters that are there, like Leo and Stuart Lancaster's been a huge addition, the players like Isa and Johnny Sexton, and then when you're in with the national squad, obviously Joe Schmidt, the master of them all. So there's so many different people you can gain experiences off, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, that's you say, like someone like Gervin was head of the academy when I was in the sub academy, and then as I went through to academy and then senior, he went through to the backs coach as well. So even getting to work with him, Leo, who are past Leinster players who've been successful with Leinster, and I mean they know what it takes to win, and then obviously Stuart with his experience adding to that. Yeah, I consider myself lucky, and then I mean players, there's a combination of players I would have grown up watching and supporting and trying to copy while I was in school. The fact that I get to work with them on a daily basis, I mean it still hasn't really worn off, and I mean, I'm always trying to learn as much as I can off them. And then you throw in someone like Jordan Larmour who comes in and is running rings around you. You have to learn just as much off him. So it is, as you said, it's a cool atmosphere to be a part of. And yeah, ideally get back as soon as possible from injury now and get the chance to play alongside the guys.
Hearing that, you're obviously studying law and business in UCD at the moment. Whenever you see a rugby player who's, I don't know, studying, you think about the practical nature of it all, setting themselves up for a life after rugby. But with you, it seems that there's almost just a sense of improving yourself as a person and upskilling, and even looking down the line isn't really a factor, that it's about self-improvement.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. It is just about being better. I know my dad, who played rugby, his rugby career now, not at any great level, but he was playing down in Blackrock, the club, and it was one game he was injured, and then that was that for him. So I think it is a brutal sport, so you have to kind of have something to fall back on. But
what was his injury?
If you were to ask him, he'd talk to you for about 20 minutes about it. So, but it was just an internal thing that went wrong, but that was him. So, you know, and he certainly himself, my mum would always have been on my back about studying in college, but even Leinster would always encourage it as well, because they drive that self-improvement, and it's no harm when you leave the building that you have something else to work towards, and it makes you better all round. So like Leinster and Leo in the past has been incredibly facilitative to my degree and exams I might have, and then in turn thankfully I'm in UCD, and they do incredible work at helping me and supporting me and giving assignment extensions. And just there last month I sat an exam in the Aviva Stadium. It was in the captain's run before the Exeter game, so I was lucky that UCD were able to send a script down with an invigilator, and I was able to sit it at the same time as guys up in the RDS. So it was myself and Ross Maloney sat it after the captain's run before the Exeter game.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it is, but that's what I'm saying. I'm lucky to be in UCD, that they're as supportive as they are, and then as well as Leinster, that they didn't mind at all, and they were happy and supportive of it as well.
I'm not sure if this is an exact science, but I think the points for law and business are around 520 points, so that tells me it's pretty hard work.
A bit less 5 years ago now, but it was in and around that, yeah.
Is there a general awareness then around Leinster about players and about the end of the road? Because Gordon Darcy a couple of months ago was writing about how he left rugby and suddenly he was into the real world and didn't really expect it to be as hard hitting as it was, that he wasn't fully prepared. You seem like you are going to be fully prepared. Is that certainly doing a degree like that takes around 500 points to get into is a good start anyway. But
well, there's a couple, like Rory O'Loughlin and Dan Levy graduated last year from the degree I'm doing now, business and law, so I think there's a good culture that amongst the young lads to get something done in college, as well as the support coming from Leinster, that they're happy and supportive of guys to study outside. So I don't know, I wouldn't really think too far down the road.
Have you been around the squad when Bundy Aki's been in there? How has he changed things in terms of like how centre is set up and how the conversations you have around the game?
Yeah, well, I've only been in, I was in a camp there a couple of weeks ago. It was only a short kind of one day. Yeah, I haven't trained too much with him, but I know from chatting to Robbie he can't say enough good things about him, and I think he's proven in the Connacht jersey his quality and how good he is, and he's a real leader at Connacht, and I've no doubt it was evident in November, and I've no doubt it'll be evident during the Six Nations the calibre of a player he is. That at Ireland at the end of the day, any successful team has an incredible amount of competition. So in the centre, with himself and Chris Farrell has come home, that this year them as new additions add to that competition and hopefully drive the standard around them as well as making Ireland better. So
I guess that's another element of self-improvement, isn't it?
Yeah, well, like there's two ways you can look at it, and I think the best way is to view it as trying to better yourself. And I mean, selection is something that's unfortunately never in my control. So there's no point worrying about something like that. All I can worry about is just trying to improve myself as much as I can and learn as much as I can. In Leinster, put my hand up for selection, get back fit, try and put my hand up for selection, and then kind of go from there.
Because your position is kind of representative of the strength and depth that Ireland has at the moment. It's not just a great 1 to 15 anymore. This is a team that's very strong when you look at the bench, and that's what's getting a lot of people excited when it comes to the World Cup in 2019 as well.
Well, it's why I think there is a lot of excitement, but I know kind of the mindset I'm thinking, and I'm sure the guys in camp are the same, is that all they're worrying about is France, to be honest, and preparing as best they can for France and putting forward their best performance and hopefully win. And they're not really thinking too much beyond that, I can imagine, that take each game as it comes.
Garry Ringrose there with Owen yesterday at the PwC headquarters. Things are going to work out for Garry Ringrose. He's an all-round nice guy, it turns out. Right, if you want to get in touch, you can tweet us here at Off the Ball. You can always get us on Facebook or YouTube, both / Off the Ball as well. Now, time for us to talk about the Super Bowl, and I'm delighted to say we've got Mike Carlson back. Mike, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good. Just getting ready to go to Minneapolis.
Not the easiest place in the world to get to. I think probably a couple of connecting flights, right?
No, it's direct. 10
right.
10 hours direct. I did it last summer with my son. It's not the warmest place to go to in the world, though. It's something like -9 Celsius right now, and it's supposed to be even colder on game day. But of course, the stadium's indoors, so that's not going to matter to the game.
We'd like to introduce you to, maybe you know about this, you're a learned man, well-travelled, so you've probably heard of the concept of Q-tourism. It's a very peculiarly Irish thing, but we think the Pats and their supporters in particular, and the Boston-based analysts have all been Q-touring to beat the band this week.
You know, you've got me there.
Hey, okay.
That's one I've never heard of.
Well, I'm gonna pass you over.
What is it? Q-touring, huh?
Q-touring. Our resident Kerry man here. It's a peculiarly Kerry thing, actually, where you can explain this better on.
Yeah, basically, if you've been wildly successful, Mike, you can afford to do the Q tour on it, which basically there's this one term that will endear you to the public in terms of Q tourism, and that is Yera. And I would imagine if the Patriots fans were Irish, they would use the word Yera a lot. They would say, Yera, we'll keep the head down, we'll work away, we maybe don't stand that much of a chance on Sunday. And Ger reckons that's what the Patriots fans have been like all week, that they don't believe that they're going to kill the Philadelphia Eagles, even though that's highly possible.
Yeah, I actually think they're right, and I don't see. If I saw the game going, one-sided, I would think it would be more likely to go one-sided to the Eagles, because I think they're too good a defensive team to let New England jump way out ahead of them, and unlike, say, Jacksonville last week, they're a better coach team, and if they have a lead, they're not going to take their foot off the pedal, and it'll be harder for New England to get themselves back into the game. Compared to Philadelphia fans, New England fans are intensely intelligent and well behaved, and would be a pleasure to have anywhere. But Philadelphia is the kind of place where everybody gets very, very excited and about everything. Sports talk radio in Philadelphia is one of the worst things you'll ever listen to. It's so bitter and so twisted, and it's the kind of place where they throw snowballs at Santa Claus in the football stadium. I remember in the days when they used to throw batteries at baseball players from the stands, at the outfielders. And they do this in New York as well, but in Philadelphia, when the fan who threw the battery missed the player, everyone would boo him.
Yeah, they punch horses as well. That's the other latest trend amongst their fans. The reason I'm interested in this notion that if there's going to be a team who wins, clearly that it'll be Philly. How would the game play out for Philadelphia to win with like a 7/10 point margin of victory?
they have if that happens, they either break a big play against New England's defense early, but more likely they get turnovers like they did in Minnesota. A couple of early turnovers put them up. They got one long touchdown, and now it's 21-7, and they then added 3 points in the last 37 seconds of the first half. Like I said, not taking their foot off the pedal, and that turned the whole game around. Now, the Patriots, as we know, have been down big before, and they're a team that can come back. But it'll be harder for them because I don't think the Eagles will let the clock help the Patriots as much as, say, Atlanta did last year. And you think of the Eagles with their big running backs with Jay Ajayi from London and LeGarrette Blount, who played for the Patriots last year in the Super Bowl. They could just pound the ball 1, 2, 3, but they'll also be aggressive. Doug Peterson's that kind of coach, and I think it's a fascinating game. I was amazed that the line was so pro New England when it came out, 5.5 points, and I thought that Philadelphia and 5.5 points was a pretty good bet, because if you look back, all the Patriots Super Bowl games have been close, whether they win or lose. And the playoff game against Jacksonville was close. They ran over Tennessee, but Philadelphia is a lot like Jacksonville, a really good defensive team with a good offensive line. Running backs, they had Fournette, but they've got Ajayi and a quarterback who's not considered, up to Tom Brady's standard. But as we saw with Jacksonville, that can get you a ways. I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl.
There's a key moment in the Eagles' journey to the Super Bowl in the game against Atlanta where it looks like Nick Foles, I think it's just before halftime, has thrown a pretty horrible interception, but the ball cannons back off the legs of the defender into the arms of Torrey Smith, who retains possession, gets the first down, and I think they go on and score a field goal just before halftime to close the gap. Maybe I'm wrong about the sequence. Maybe they end up scoring again.
That's about right. That's a designed play. No, I mean he got lucky, and that's kind of the way it goes, and it lets a quarterback build his confidence. They're playing a game plan that's designed to make it easier for him. His weak point has generally been throwing under pressure in the pocket. So what they're doing is an awful lot of play action passes and a lot of what they call RPOs, run pass option plays, where you'll watch him and he's literally holding the handoff to watch where the linebacker moves. And if the linebacker comes up, he then throws to the spot behind him where a receiver is cutting over. And what that does is takes the pressure off the offensive line to protect him standing in the pocket, because the defense can't just come straight at him. They have to respect that running threat, especially because they've got good running backs. So in that sense, they simplified the game for him and made it easy. And as you saw against Minnesota, he does have a good big arm, and he's not afraid to throw it. Doug Peterson, the coach, has never been afraid to go deep on any down. He kind of his offense tends to have that option on most pass plays. There is at least one deep receiver. That's gonna threaten the Patriots. And even as I say this to you, I go back and forth on this game as to who I would pick, straight up. And I just think the matchup is so good. The Eagles, player for player, are a stronger team. They've got better groups of players, but the Patriots, as we know, are just a phenomenally well-coached team and well-disciplined team. And it's hard sometimes to bet against that.
Talk to us about this Philadelphia defensive line, Mike, because it's their strongest element of the pitch, arguably, but it's also arguable to say that they don't have one standout star there. And does that make Tom Brady's position a little bit more dangerous, that they can't just target one person on the D-line to watch out for those sacks?
Well, they do have Fletcher Cox, and Fletcher Cox will be the guy that they're watching out for. And what they do, and James Schwartz, who started his career as a scout with Bill Belichick before he went to the Ravens, where another Belichick protege, Ozzie Newsome, is in charge. He likes to play with wide defensive ends, and Philadelphia have 4 of them. who are all good pass rushers, all probably better natural pass rushers than anyone on the Patriots. One of them is Chris Long, who played for the Patriots last year as well. And he had a couple of big plays in the game against Minnesota. But inside, with Cox and Timmy Jernigan, who they picked up from the Ravens, they've got two guys who can both occupy two blockers if they want to, or shoot one gap, work one-on-one with somebody. And Cox is a beast. He's one of the better defensive tackles in the league. Jernigan, I think, is highly underrated. The one thing the Patriots will probably do is, because Philadelphia rotate these guys to keep them fresh, and they've got a big space eater called Bowl LII who plays in the middle, they tend to move them constantly. I would expect the Patriots to play more hurry up than they have done in the playoffs, which means not huddling, just lining up at the line of scrimmage to stop Philadelphia from substituting. And especially, I think, if Bowl LII is on the field, because he's not as mobile as the other two guys, that's when they'll probably try to hurry up, keep him out there, try to tire them out a bit more, and take advantage of them late. And if you remember back to last year's Super Bowl, conditioning was a huge part of that. And the Patriots offense had some ridiculous number. I think it was 92 plays on the field, and Atlanta's defense was visibly tired in the fourth quarter. You know, they were hands on knees and huffing and puffing, and that helped the Patriots quite a bit.
Just on the Tom Brady issue, right? Like, clearly one of the greatest sports people in any sport at any point in history, who he himself, after last year's Super Bowl, claimed that the reason he's so good now is that he's seen everything before, that whatever any defense comes up and puts him through, he looks at it and goes, okay, that's that thing that you've done that time once before, and I remember, okay, you're doing that thing over there, I see exactly what you're doing now. That bit never changes for him, but he still needs the physical ability and the tools to be able to execute when he diagnoses what's coming against him. Has there been any sign this year that he's just off a little bit, or enough for a team like the Eagles to profit?
You know, I think he's been better this year, to be honest, than he was last year. I just saw somebody who charting his throws. He's thrown the ball long more, largely because he has Brandon Cooks as a deep receiver, and they look to Gronk, who hopefully will play. If Gronk doesn't play, things change, but I suspect he will. And he's been phenomenally accurate the whole time. If you watch the comeback against Jacksonville, there's a number of those passes, like the 3rd and 18 pass for 20 yards to Danny Amendola, that are thrown within a really narrow window of where you can put the ball so it will be complete. And he needed good catches to, because those become difficult balls to catch. But his placement was exceptional throughout the game. And so, I think if anything, he's played better this year than he did last year. And I don't think overall this team is as good a team as the team last year against Atlanta, but they may actually be playing better in that sense offensively.
The other issue, I guess, there's been that rumbling story, the ESPN story came out about the breakdown in relationship, or suspected breakdown in relationship. And in previous years, Deflategate would have happened. Something would have happened in the build-up to the Super Bowl that would have been the main media story. The biggest media story this week is some Boston radio host getting suspended for calling Brady's daughter a pissant. This is in the Tom versus Time thing. The only thing that really struck me from that whole episode was that here is the quarterback of the Patriots on Belichick's team, again, greatest player of all time, doing something which is mildly distracting in the build-up to the Super Bowl. Because obviously he knew that they were going to be in the Super Bowl probably when the season started and the broadcast schedule was released. So Belichick can't be that happy that Tom Brady is making a 7-part series to sell books in the run-up to the Super Bowl.
It's funny, the nation, most of the nation hates the Patriots anyway. Which is kind of good for football in a sense, but bad for the Patriots. And like you said, with Brady being such a great sportsman, I don't think he actually gets that kind of love or recognition, because some of it just seems too commercial or too artificial or too good to be true. And that's something that in America is almost not taken for granted, but just shrugged off. If guys can promote themselves, they promote themselves. And I think, there were a number of sports writers writing columns at the end of last season, beginning of this season. The only reason Brady was playing was so he could promote his TB12 label and his longevity serums and stuff like that. But I think that kind of misses the point, just like the Wickersham article kind of misses the point. And of course, if Brady retires and Belichick quits right after the Super Bowl, then Seth Wickersham was right, and those of us who didn't think it was such a big thing are wrong. But they're competitors. That's why they've done so well. And, they love the competition. And I suspect that Bill Belichick, knowing that both of his coordinators are going to go, and the last time that happened was when they beat Philadelphia in the Super Bowl in 2005, will see that as a challenge that he wants to overcome, and another generation of coaches, which includes his son. So I don't see him leaving. I see him just saying, okay, this is what I do. This is what I love doing, and I'm going to keep doing that. And I think Brady is probably more or less the same way.
Could I just ask one last question, Mike? Watching Tom versus Tom the last couple of days, I'm sure you've been watching it yourself. It seems that Tom Brady is unusually motivated by defeat. I know athletes always say that the defeats last in their memory a lot longer than the wins, but he was watching that Giants match from 2008 in Tom versus Time. It could have been a facade, but part of me thinks that he really, he's still suffering from that incomplete pass to Randy Moss.
Was it I didn't see it. Was it the Moss pass or was it the one to Wes Welker? Because the pass, they could have won the game if he and Welker connect on this pass where Welker's open about 20 yards downfield, and he throws it to the wrong side, and Welker turns around and alligator arms it. And that's the one I'd be watching over and over. Yeah. In the 2007 game with Moss, Asante, the play before David Tyree catches the ball on his head, Asante Samuel drops an interception. Eli Manning throws it right into his chest, and Samuel can't control it. So it's like if those two plays go the other way, New England might win those games. And yeah, if I were Brady, I'd probably watch them over and over again and just wonder. But it's the kind of thing, like Jared was saying with the Nick Foles play, the bounce back pass to Torrey Smith. Those are the kind of things that turn games, and then we kind of forget about them and say, this team's the greatest team ever, and those guys are losers. But really, the difference is just one or two plays, where sometimes it's, you just can't determine how the ball goes.
Have you made
listening to you guys before I came on? Yeah, wouldn't it be great if the NFL teams had selection committees?
Oh yeah,
and Bill Belichick couldn't choose his starting lineup. He had to have like Bob Kraft and four other guys choosing the lineup for him.
Don't Dallas have one of those?
Yeah, it's Jerry Jones and his son.
Come here, have you actually made your straight up pick? It sounds like you're leaning towards the Eagles.
I'm probably going to pick the Eagles, I think. But I have to do that as soon as I hang up with you guys. I'll have to write that column and do it. So, tune into NFL UK, NFLUK.com. It'll go up sometime in the next couple of days. I think they're all off in Minnesota, so when they get it and then put it up on the website, it'll be there. But at the moment, I'm leaning toward Philadelphia, but I haven't flipped my coin yet.
Enjoy your trip, whatever way the coin lands. Mike, great to have you with us. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Mike Crossan giving us his thoughts there ahead of this game.
Yeah, there's some big news after breaking this morning. We had Jim Walden, lawyer for Grigory Rodchenkov, on the show last week. We had him on. The hook for the piece basically was because the Court of Arbitration for Sport are currently hearing the case of 43 for them. Cases were backdated, so about 38 Russian athletes in Geneva at the moment with regard to these life bans that have been handed down for the state-sponsored Russian doping program. We've had a verdict this morning from Geneva, and 28 of these Russian athletes who were banned from the Olympics for life have had their suspensions fully overturned by CAS, which is huge news, really. 11 of the bans have been partially upheld. Jim Walden, who was our guest on the show last week, has spoken about this. His statement reads as follows. Dr. Rodchenkov testified fully and credibly at CAS. His truth has been verified by forensic evidence, other whistleblowers, and more recently recovery of the Moscow Lab's secret database, showing thousands of dirty tests that were covered up. This panel's unfortunate decision provides a very small measure of punishment for some athletes, but a couple get out of jail free cards for most. Thus, the CAS decision only emboldens cheaters, makes it harder for clean athletes to win, and provides yet another ill-gotten gain for the corrupt Russian doping system generally, and Putin specifically. So Jim Walden, strong words from him. Grigory Rodchenkov's evidence not enough apparently to uphold these bans.
Wow, this is remarkable because, like, the evidence seemed fairly clear-cut that there was a state-sponsored doping program, particularly around the Winter Olympics in Sochi. So we'll just have to wait and see the reasoned decision from CAS when that comes out and get into the nitty-gritty of it. But not a great day for people who like watching clean sport or having the notion that your sport is clean. It turns out you can't trust athletics, and it turns out athletics doesn't want to be trusted. So, I don't know.
Who cares? I think the good news is that they're not able to compete in next week's Olympics, so we can watch this year's Winter Olympics free of these people who are involved in the state-sponsored doping program. So there's one little glimmer of light there.
They could now seek late entry into the games.
Okay, right.
I presume that...
I take that back straight away.
If you've been kicked out on what are, you know, spurious legal grounds, then you'd have a case against the IOC if they didn't let you in, because...
Yeah, it seemed a very quick turnaround to get yourself in there, though.
What a mess. What a mess. The Court of Arbitration for Sport have kicked up this morning. And look, again, could have waited to see the actual reasoned decision from the Court of Arbitration for Sport to see exactly what they said about Rodchenkov's testimony, and we'll take that story from there. No doubt they'll cover this a little bit later on Off the Ball on radio as well. We have a big day for you coming up. The Keith Andrews football show will be live for you from 12:30. On top of that, it is a Thursday night, which means Thursday night football with John Giles, Graham Hunter on the football show. Keith Wood is going to be part of the show tomorrow when the official team does finally get named, but I think we know the team at this point, right?
I think so, yeah. Is the bench has that been fully named?
Yeah, I think everybody seemed to have a consensus on the bench of that one. So there was a couple of quick comments that I wanted to get there. The dog masks were because they were the number one seed, but were underdogs, which rarely ever happens. It was as simple as that. It was like a split second, let's all wear dog masks to this game because we're underdogs.
Yeah, it's kind of a poor response there. I'm very disappointed with that. I thought there was some nice web of story there that we could have got into, but no, underdogs. Like the GAA team should do that. When instead of saying should they wrote us off all year, they should wear dog masks. Which means every GAA team, including Jim Gavin's Dublin, will win.
They wrote us
wear
off.
Dublin or dog masks.
The Hill 16 lads. Keith Wood, Lawrence Delalio, Kevin Kilban on tomorrow's show on Off the Ball AM. Adrian and Owen are going to be here for that. Nathan is presenting tonight on Off the Ball on the radio with John Giles. The Keith Andrews show live from 12:30 with Kevin Kilban and Daryl Murphy talking about his decision to retire from international football. But that's your lot right now. Stay tuned to our social channels, Off the Ball, at Off the Ball AM, even on Twitter, youtube.com/Off the Ball, and you can subscribe and see much more of our in-depth stuff on that channel. See you tomorrow. Good luck.